I would mention that we do have quite a few historic accessory structures that are already historic. So just going on that, those commissions in the past have determined that accessory structures are worth the designation of historic structures. Not saying we need to determine elsewhere tonight, but just going by what has been determined in the past.
I think the whole motion should be denied, and we take them on an individual basis, because some of those things are not sheds. Like this little house at 310 is like a little outbuilding almost. And some of the garage apartments are no longer have the double bay. You would never know that a garage even existed. Should be denied, and we take them on an individual basis, because some of those things are not sheds. Like this little house in 310 is like a little outbuilding.
Since there's been a second, you
And
need to
some
have
of
a
the
vote.
garage apartments. All right, let's have a vote as to whether that motion is going to carry to deny everything historic. So
Louise, I'd like to do that as a roll call.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Crossland?
Not in for the motion.
There's been a second,
Thank you.
you need
Mr.
to have a vote.
Gallagher?
All right, let's have a vote as to whether that.
Having heard the opposition to it, I will abstain.
Okay, Louisa, thank you, Mr. Roll.
Okay.
As you know,
Mr. Crossland? Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Thank you. Mr. Gallagher? Thank you. Matt, motion fails 2-1 with 1 abstention.
Abstain.
Thank you.
If there are no approvals, we can go on to item number 10, since we're skipping the agenda, unless there is a motion for any
Thank you.
consent
Matt,
approvals.
motion fails.
Austin, I'd like to think the items starting with 310 that being considered individual.
Okay, go on to item 10. So, just here, unless there's a item for any consent approvals. And Amanda, if you want to unmute.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can get you. So, everyone on the commission, this is Amanda Knight, our emergency manager, and she'll be explaining item number 10. And Amanda,
Well, thank you. I won't take very much of your time at all unless you have questions. Can you hear me? But I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come to you and ask for a letter of support for a grant that we are submitting through FEMA's non-disaster hazard mitigation program. There's 2 specific programs we're applying for, the particular projects. One is the flood mitigation assistance grant, and the other one is the building resilient infrastructure and communities grant. FEMA's non-disaster are applications to implement the flood mitigation for Royal Avenue and Edward Park Basin. So, as I'm sure you're familiar, that is a $12.8 million project that we will be requesting up to a 75% match from FEMA. As the discussion for the Historic District Preservation Commission, I think will be a very good indicator of us aligning goals in protecting and mitigating flooding for so many historic buildings in the Old Village. And so I have drafted a letter of support to the board and have sent that over to Austin. And if you have no questions, I end my brief for
Ms. Knight, I have a question. This is Louise Montgomery. As I understand it, that is the Julian Weston Park, not the Edwards Park.
Ma'am, it's not a particular park, it is the Edmonds Park Basin. So those are two flood basins, Royal Avenue Basin and Edwards Park Basin.
As I understand it, but the name of the park is Julian Weston Park, not Edwards.
Ma'am, if you can see, Austin, I'm not sure if you're able to, if this map is all that I can see, but if you like Austin, do you mind outlining the entire Edwards Park Basin?
We're looking at the park as Julian Weston Park.
So it just encompasses a much larger area than just any smaller park. It's much bigger. It goes out all the way to pretty much past Tree Hot Middle and over to so it just encompasses each company project area like that. Just any smaller park. It's
and thank you for the question. I think it's a very good one. These are two of the two largest drainage basins in the Old Village, and so we expect the impact to be the greatest, that it can be. Of course, as I'm sure you are familiar, we did a study of the Old Village for all of the sub-basins in the Old Village, and then came out of that had a recommendation for a drainage project to address two very large drainage basins. The greatest that it can be, of course.
So you want a motion that we a motion of support?
Yes, ma'am. I think what we need is a motion to approve providing a letter of support. As I mentioned, I drafted it and provided Austin with it.
Yeah, basically what I would do is I'll sign it on behalf of you for the members, pending your voice of support.
I had a quick question, Austin. How come it stops abruptly, like the Royal Avenue Basin stops abruptly at Pitt Street and doesn't continue past Pitt Street?
Members, that's where basically what this is showing is basically where the water flows and how it basically gets there. I can actually confirm that there is the other side on Pitt Street goes towards more in between Middle Street and Street. So there is more what this is showing. Just depends on which way the water flows. So the water on that side goes towards I can interpret that there is the other side.
I'm just calling that out because we've had several applications on the other side of Pitt where everyone's very alarmed about drainage of any new project.
That's a different basin.
It's a different basin. Okay. I'm just calling.
Do we
that
have
out
a motion
because
for
we've had
of
several
support for
applications
the
on
letter
other
as
side of
presented
Pitt
to the
where
town
everyone's
concerning the
very
drainage
alarmed about drainage
grant
of
for
any new
Edwards
project.
Park Basin and Royal Avenue Basin?
It's a different basin. Okay.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion for
Yes,
support
I have a motion to be in favor of
concerning the
writing a letter.
drainage?
All right.
We're gonna go back to what?
Here we go.
The 6.
Yes. Item number 6A is 301 Center Street. Applicant seeking final approval for enclosing a portion of the front porch. Applicable ordinances are porch percentage, applicable design guidelines are doors and windows, number 3 and number 9. There you go. Moving to staff comments, the enclosing of a portion of the front porch reduces the percentage from 17.5 to still a conforming 14%. The enclosure, architect design guidelines, design of a previous porch enclosure on the rear. Should be noted that the neighbor comments, the enclosing property directly across the street reduces the percentage of their porch about 2 years ago, forming 14%. The enclosure, staff recommendation is to enclosure on the rear. Due to should be noted that the neighbor comments, the neighbor property directly across the street moving into their middle itself. This is the staff recommendation property that includes the front porch and moves directly across the street. Due to it be noted that the staff comments. Here we go to the floor plan. So they're enclosing this portion of the porch for a buffer space and changing out the front porch as well. Here are the elevations, as you can see right here. That would be what it would look on the side, and then here we go to the floor plan. So they're enclosing this reduces the style window or a buffer vent. This is the previews and changing out the porch enclosure on the rear and maybe mimicking that design as you can see here. As you can see right here, that should be noted that inside is the staff report of the applicant is ready.
We are ready.
David, and you have 10 minutes. Porch enclosure on the rear.
It should take that long. I'm David. Yeah, David McCall, architect. I'm with Paula Kedge. Paula wanted to do an addition to the house to increase the use and function of the kitchen with the butler's pantry. So we stayed within the footprint of the existing structure. And it is a non-historic building. It's built in 2009, and we stayed within the footprint. And so, seek your approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Of the existing structure.
Are we ready for a motion of approval?
We need to have available public comment and report, and then the board can ask some questions if they so choose.
Is there any public comment?
For those of you that may be turning into YouTube, if you call this number, I have available this number, and then the conference ID that you can ask some questions, type is this one, and we'll give you a minute to call in if you
Is there any public comment?
For those of you that...
I did just allow an anonymous caller in. I'm not sure if you wanted to speak on this item.
Caller, that was allowed in. If you are wanting to speak on this item, just give your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. For those of you
I did just allow an anonymous caller in. I'm not sure if you wanted to speak on this item.
You may have a caller and mute yourself by hitting *6 if you are wanting to speak on this item. Just give your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. For those of you that...
Yes, they have no comment. But there's no one else waiting in the lobby.
May have give another 15 seconds just to make sure.
Well, let me know when you're ready for a motion.
Okay. Well, we got
But there's no one else waiting in the lobby.
seeing that is calling in. You can ask for any questions of the board, Lisa.
Does anyone have any questions concerning this enclosure of the front porch?
I just have one quick thing, Austin. The new percentage was calculated with the new enclosed square footage, right?
Yes, so it was, there was no increase of BAR, because you're already enclosing what is already added into BAR, but reducing it down to 14%, which is well above the 10% minimum. There's a large, expansive rear porch as well, so that's helps them, as well as the rest of the what else are retained.
They're working within the same footprint, so you don't need to worry about the percentage.
14%, which is well above the 10% minimum. There's a large, expansive rear porch as well.
Any other discussion, any members?
Helps them, as well as the rest of the front porch that is retained.
They're working within the same footprint, so you don't need to worry about the percentage.
I had no staff rebuttal or anything, unless the applicant also can speak again if there's anything else that they want to add.
We appreciate your comments on it, Austin, and your approval.
Hearing none.
I had no, Louisa, if you could close the public comment.
All right, this closes the public comment for the discussion of 301 South Street.
If there's anything else that they want to add, as well as.
I would like to make a motion that this be
Appreciate
approved
your
as
comments on it, Austin,
requested.
and your approval.
I will second. All in favor, or any more discussion? I guess not. All right, this closes. All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion of 301 South. Ayes? All right, that carried, Lynette.
I would like to make a motion
Go on
that
to
this be approved
221
as
Queen.
requested.
I will second. All in favor, or any more
All right.
discussion? I guess not.
221 Queen Street, applicant is seeking final review for additions and alterations to the home. Local ordinances are impervious lot coverage, yard requirements, BAR requirement, and parking requirements. Local design guidelines are foundation number 3, wood exterior number 2, 4, and 5. Doors and windows number 3, 7, and 9. Porches and stoops number 9, and additions number 1. Local ordinances are, the application appears to conform with the zoning code provisions and the design guidelines. Staff appreciates the modifications which allow the home to address Pitt Street more strongly than the current design, thanks to the new doorway and porch. The applicant is requesting an encroachment of 11 inches into the Pitt Street side setback. Shows precedence for the neighboring side setbacks along Queen Street, but this lot is a corner lot, unlike the other lots on Queen Street, so that poses a little bit different, and the encroachment is on the Pitt Street frontage. There does not appear to be any precedent along the street, along the Pitt Street, so that, and we'll get to that right here. Staff recommends approval for the design guidelines. The design guidelines are being met, however, the pictures of the site, approval for the design guidelines. The design guidelines are being met, however, and then of the neighboring structures. And here's the current site plan, and you'll notice it starts changing around over here. So you have the addition of a small stoop and stair, and a new front door around over here. So you have the addition of and then you'll see there's also a second story addition off of current first story. So you have the addition of in the front porch is also here. And then you can see the Pitt Street streetscape, or elevation rather, definitely gets significant changes with windows as well as a door and porch to help address it. Definitely gets significant changes. Then the elevations from Queen Street as well, door and porch to help address it. And then the roof plan, and the elevations from Queen Street as well, then where the new lighting would be, and then the roof plan. And that concludes the staff report. Let me get to the site plan. So you'll see right here, the side setback is 10 feet. And the proposal is to go down 11 inches to 9.4. Let me get to the site front stoop. So you'll see right here. So that concludes the staff report. And Linda, if you're ready, you can have your 10 minutes. So that concludes the staff report. And Linda, when you're ready, Linda, you may need to take yourself off mute. So that concludes the staff report. And Linda, you may need to take yourself off mute.
Can you hear me now?
Linda, we're getting some major feedback on yours. And you want to try calling in, Linda? Let me bring up the code for you. Linda, we're getting some major feedback on yours. And Linda, you might want to try calling in. You want to try calling in, Linda? Because we're getting some major feedback on your end. Linda, you might want to try calling in. Because we're getting some major feedback on your end. Linda, you might want to try calling in. Give her a second. Because we're getting some major feedback on your end. Linda, you might want to try calling in. Give her a second. Because we're getting some major feedback on your end. Do we have any callers, Lynette? Helping being Linda.
No, no one waiting in the lobby.
Good.
But we haven't asked for comment yet, so.
Yeah.
That's probably Linda. Hold on. No, no one waiting in the lobby.
Hello?
There we go. We haven't asked for comment yet, so.
Yeah.
That's probably Linda. Hold on. Linda, we can hear you. There you go. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, this is Linda Balzac, and I'm an architect for the homeowner. And she wanted to make the house a little bit more traditional. As you know, it was a pretty modern-looking template, a conservative building 20 or so years ago. So there are no lights in the windows, no dividers, and it's pretty much a streamlined house. They needed a couple more bedrooms upstairs, and so we incorporated the existing front shed roof on Fifth Street. And I continued the dormer out to project about 2 feet over the lower floor, just to add some shadow lines and massing. Is 8 feet, and it's narrow and it's hard to walk by a rocking chair. So that's why I'm asking for that variance. There is no precedent along Pitt Street, but there are a few doors down there closer, and then Queen Street does have a number of I'm asking for that variance. Side yard setbacks that are pretty narrow. Some ones down to about 3 or 4 feet, which I'd done a few years ago, but didn't want to ask for that. Just wanted enough to just say, here's a statement, here's the porch, and matching all existing materials and such. And that's it. If you have any questions, years ago, but didn't want to ask for that. Just wanted to know. Wait, I had to walk away from the computer. Here's the porch. And okay, I'm going to turn my mute button off for a second. No, I'm not. You just go ahead. Is they want to ask for that.
Can you hear
I don't want
me?
to wait for you to. I can hear you.
Good. Linda, this is Louisa. I think you've done an excellent job. The house needed some freshening up to bring it more into the flavor of the village. And I'd be more than willing to give you that short stay to allow others not needed to freshen necessary to do more into. I think that is most necessary, and I'm definitely in favor of allowing that. I think that is
Louisa, if you could call for public comment.
Do we have anyone from the public who wishes to address this encouragement now?
Yes, callers, if you're just tuning in.
So that you had porch beyond the entry for your rocking chair, or any other, ideas?
If I think that I did play with a few ideas with some more shed roof, but there's enough shed roof along that elevation that I just wanted to continue with the gable. And if I extended 8 feet out on the existing shed roof, the shed roof would start to drop, or I'd have to change the pitch and make it, to the left of that gable above. It would just be odd. So I did play with that, but it just didn't breed well at all in massing.
And then I guess my other question was just generally for Austin, are there other examples where, where the side of the house is on pit and something like this has been done?
If I may interject, I know you want to. The house directly across on Queen Street, the little yellow house, which they've just changed the color, that porch, the porch dresses both Queen Street and Pitt Street, and there are a few other examples of that. If you go down further, both ends of Pitt Street, there are just some that address both corners on Pitt and their side streets. There's a number that I've worked on. I can't remember all the numbers right now.
Yeah, I know there's houses that have, like the side porch on Pitt. I'm just wondering if there's any other houses that have encroached, closer to Pitt Street like this.
There are some down the street that do approach, but they weren't close enough to count towards precedent. There's one down right opposite Higher Street, and then actually the historic one next to it on Higher 827 that we worked on, that does encroach into the front yard setback. There are a number, but they're just not as close as we normally use to consider for precedent.
I believe there's a rather new house from 1940s. It's on the corner of Ferry and Pitt that is much closer to the street than is normal. So you could certainly follow the precedents of a dwelling of older denomination being closer to the street.
Yes, and that's one that I did measure that is closer to the street.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. But that was weird. I was measuring it. It was a front yard setback because that was the one door, but the house is 19 feet off of Pitt Street. Off its property line.
Right. Anybody, any more comment, Corey, or you want to go to Robert? Robert,
Me, I'm ready to make a motion.
well, we got to let Gene have his speak.
I'm good with it.
All righty. You making a motion then, Robert?
I have nothing further to say. I don't think Linda does. Do you? For rebuttal?
I don't. I'm good. No rebuttal.
Ms. Montgomery, if you could close the public comment.
All righty. We now close the public comment concerning 221 Queen Street and the encroachment. Do we have a motion to approve the addition and alterations to the home?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to grant a COA to the applicant as submitted.
Could you include the language that you're finding that there's a precedent in accordance with yard requirements?
Yes. As it falls within the realm of the design guidelines, including the side setback encroachment, for there appears to be precedent set on neighboring lots in accordance with yard requirements, and it looks really good.
Okay.
I will second that. That's great. Any discussion? All right. All in favor of Robert's motion to accept encroachment and design alterations? Aye.
Aye.
Everybody aye. Any nays? Motion carried, Lynette.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right, let us proceed to the preliminary comment for 125 Pitt Street, the old debris.
The applicable ordinances are the impervious lot coverage, yard requirements, historic buildings, and applicable design guidelines are wood exterior number 3 and 5, doors and windows number 1, 2, 4, and 9, roofs number 1, 2, 4, and 5, additions number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, relocation number 1, 2, 3. Sorry. That was the timer going off. Sorry about that. Relocation number 1, 2, and 3, demolition number 2 and 3, storefronts number 1 and 2, and paint number 1 and 2. As this is a preliminary request, there's no recommendation and there's just comments, so there's no vote or anything like that. Due to the lot being non-conforming with several aspects, impervious coverage, buffers, on-site parking, when we get to that final approval, it would need your consideration for declaring those non-conformities as conforming per section 156.313 F4 historic buildings, but later date. The applicant is requesting several setback encroachments per yard requirements, and all of these appear to be in line with the precedents of the other commercial properties along Pitt Street, as all of them are abutting or near abutting property lines within that historic portion. The commission should determine the appropriateness of using the aluminum clad windows and doors on a historic structure. The design guideline, doors and windows number 2, states that windows should feature true divided lights, and the approved material is wood. The staff notes wood windows do not meet the building code requirements for impact ratings. There is a way around this using alternative materials in the building code. An example of this is having the hurricane panels on site. Sometimes that just means having the plywood on site, as you routinely see downtown. Paint color, along with other required materials per the checklist, will need to be turned in for the final review. So just note that for the applicant. And again, there is no recommendation since we are in preliminary comment. Moving into the actual application, this is the survey of the site as it exists now. You'll note that actually, if you step out the rear door, which it does have a rear door, you're actually on the neighbor's property in the rear. And the eaves all go over on 2 sides, and maybe the third over here actually go over the property line. That's just the way the additions were done back in the day. Here you have the current site. This is the original structure, the original 1895 structure. And then these are
sporadic additions that occur. They were done at many different points over the years, and they are, having been in this structure many times now over the course of the past couple years, as the owner was trying to figure out what to do, they are, especially the additions, are in very bad shape structurally and not structurally sound. This is the site plan of what they would like to do. Just note the building, they are proposing to move it over approximately 3 feet.
Wow.
That to have better placement for the newer additions that they'll have, so that they are not having the eaves go across property lines for the neighbors' concern for their rights. Here's the available picture that we have, taken place 1959 approximately, showing the original wood facade, and then somewhere probably in the 1970s or maybe 60s it got covered up with the current brick facade. Here you have the streetscapes, as I'm sure you're all well aware of since this is Pitt Street. And then going to the pictures of the current site. And these really don't do justice, having been inside it. The original footprint is pretty good for the most part, for especially the base flooring and the some of the roof members. However, the more you get in towards the non-historic additions, it looks like they picked up pieces of wood off of other construction projects and tried to piece together stuff, you know, like what was pretty common back in the day. So these are the non-historic additions in the rear. And here's the floor layout of what they are looking to do. So again, the main structure will be kept from the 1895, and then they will go to and remove these poorly built additions. And then the roof layout of what they're planning, and I'll show you a little bit later, as it's a little hard to see here, are adding a couple dormers, but they do not meet up with the roof pitch, the rooftop here. And then going to Pitt Street elevation, and then restoring that front facade to its original design as best as close as possible. And definitely taking off, all the brick would be gone.
Beautiful.
So again, from the northern side to the new side, and again, that is that dormer. This was suggested by staff just so that people can note that this is the, it says at the same roof level as the old historic roof level. However, it is a newer addition, and that parapet allows that to be, allows for anyone to know that.
Now, what did you say about the movement of 3 feet or something?
Yeah, so they're proposing to move the 1895 structure over 3 feet. So that way, when they reattach the new additions, basically rebuild the new additions, that they are not over the property line.
Okay.
Well, why not just make
I
the
know
new
this building
additions?
had issues with flooding in the past. Do they?
Drainage is not the concern of this commission. That'll be something that'll be handled through the approval process at staff level.
No, I was just wondering if they plan to elevate it at the same time. At part of the proposal.
No, it'd be at the same level as it is now, but it is not in a flood zone. So increasing the flood height is not required. Excuse me. Just a second, sorry. We're having the cleaning crew come in, so let me just switch to the headphones. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving to the next elevation, this from the south, and you can see what the south elevation would be here. And going into the 3D renderings. And then to artistic rendering. And that concludes the staff report. If Chris, are you ready for your
I'm here, yeah.
You have 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Chris Altman. I'm with SMHA Architects. And, you stole all my thunder. If you could maybe go back to the new floor plan, I can explain a little bit of some of the questions that were being asked. That might be the easiest thing to do. Maybe one more to the
Nope. Okay.
outline. Keep going. That one's good.
Okay.
Next one.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, the other direction. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. There you go.
Yeah, as Austin was mentioning, we are proposing to move it, and as he mentioned, is to get it off of that property line to the south, allow us to provide some space for the geometry of the building to correct some of those ad hoc and sort of hodgepodge additions that were done over the years. We're actually having to lift that existing center portion anyway because there is no real foundation under this building. It literally is 2x material sitting on dirt. And it's not something that we could continue to do moving forward. So it provided us an opportunity to go ahead and correct that situation as is. So that's kind of why we're doing that. It wasn't something that we kind of set out to do, but I think as we got into it further, realized that it would greatly improve the situation all around. If you want to move to the elevations, Austin, speak to those. We'll actually stop right here at that previous picture, the 1959 picture. As Austin mentioned, this picture on the left is the earliest known picture we have of the building, and so talking with staff, we decided this is the sort of benchmark that we're going to restore back to. And I just want to point out a couple of things. There's larger storefront windows were there that are no longer present in their full height currently. There was the original transom was above that entry door, and we discovered that was there when we opened up the interior walls and saw where the framing was there originally. Even in the 1959 photo, it was already covered up, so that's why we're showing a transom above that door, bringing that back to the original location. The louver up top, we were proposing that we would replace that, though, and originally it was for ventilation prior to air conditioning. Of course, we won't be able to do that in the new renovation, but what we are proposing to do is put a window behind it, so it'll actually be visible from the inside, just like it was back in the day. So it kind of pays homage to that original effect. Okay, Austin, if you want to shift to the elevations. You can stop there. That's good. As Austin mentioned, we are proposing to use an aluminum clad window here. I would argue that if this was a residence, I would 100% support the idea of true divided light and wood windows, but this isn't a residence. This is a commercial building. And I think providing a more durable system that what we call a passive system, requiring nobody to have to go put panels up or remove them or have ugly fasteners on the buildings to accept them, we think this is a much better solution and would be more in keeping with the aesthetic of the neighborhood and of the commercial area. As you mentioned before, we're basically bringing this all back to what the 1959 image showed. If you want to go to the next picture. That large window in the bottom left-hand corner underneath the covered area was original to the building, so we're maintaining that. What you're not seeing on these two side elevations is other windows, and that's because we're just so close to the property line. We can't provide windows for code. So that's really one of the main reasons why we're proposing those shed dormers on the roof, just to allow some more light into that space, because we don't gain them from windows on the side. And we were really in support of the idea that the staff came up with, that idea of the roof divider between the existing roof and the new roof, to always have a kind of a visual benchmark of where those two spaces stop and start. Next, Austin. I think this rear elevation is aesthetically so much more successful than what it currently is, and I'm hoping that the neighbor behind the building will be excited to see this versus what they've been looking at for a long time. We're actually adding that gable portion so that we can put the HVAC inside, so that louver, while it sort of mimics what's happening on the front of the building, is actually a functional louver for that purpose. And it does sit back off the property line enough on the rear of the property that we were able to add a couple of windows, which were never there to begin with. So I think that'll greatly increase the aesthetic of this rear portion of the building. Okay. Same here. This elevation, because of its proximity to the property line, we're not able to add any windows along that side. So the dormers and the roof contribute greatly to providing some natural light into the space. Okay. And I think these kind of speak for themselves about trying to provide a much better aesthetic and geometry to the building versus the sort of hodgepodge of additions that were done around that center portion over the years. That's good, Austin.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. We're trying.
I remember it before it was bricked up. It didn't look too good. I remember before it had brick on it, and it was a mess back then.
I wish they had never put that brick on. It's literally against the siding, and it has contributed so much to the deterioration of this building. It's really a sad thing.
It caused all the rot. Yeah.
But we're going to fix it.
Good. Thank you.
This rendering, I mean, we're just, we haven't finalized colors, but I think we're all leaning towards, the sort of white, off-white that plays along with everything else that's in the old village, especially commercial area. I didn't mention earlier, but I'll mention now, and the color's a little off here, but we're actually proposing to do a zinc roof on this building, which is in keeping with copper or turned roofs. I mean, it's a 100-year roof, and I do applaud the owner for wanting to do that so that, for sure this building will last another 100 years. That's a classic, I think a high quality roof put on this building. But back to the colors, again, I think whatever we choose and submit to you guys will, of course, come from the Charleston Historic Color, collection that is for the zoning ordinance. So we'll be sticking with that color group. And I'll open up any questions you might have.
All right. Are there any questions?
Actually, Louise, if you could open up the public comment, and then we can do the questions after any comment.
Anyone from the public have comment about the restoration of 125 Fifth Street?
Yes, again, anyone that would like to call in, call this number and then type in this conference ID, and we'll give you a minute so that you're available to call in.
There is no one waiting in the lobby.
Okay. Lisa, I think you can ask for board questions.
Public comment is closed. Do we have any questions from board members? Mr. Barber?
Sure, yeah, I had a couple items just to comment on. Just from a code standpoint, like I wasn't sure how egress out the back works if you don't have like a path of travel. That's Austin's realm. And then I did see on the rear elevation, you weren't taking advantage of putting a window on the right side of the gabled portion. And I wasn't sure if that would increase your light issue, and
You'd be looking into our neighbors, that goes into our neighbor's yard.
so do the other windows, right?
Well,
And then my last comment was just, like the additions on the sides, it appears you're just like matching the historic building. I'd be interested to see it differentiated somehow. Not sure what that would look like, but just so it's, a little more clear what the historic piece is.
To answer your question about the egress, that rear door is not required for egress because the occupancy load in this building only requires one exit, and the front meets that. As far as putting a window there, we looked at that. The challenges for the way the owner wants to use the building, we needed a wall within that conference room to place AV equipment, and that's one of the few places we have. But we can have that conversation with her and see if there's a different way we can reconfigure that maybe to look at that. But you're talking about closer where that red dot is that correct?
Yeah, it just seemed like it was an opportune place to get another window.
We'll look at that. As far as the form of the building and what we're doing, a lot of it is really dictated by that existing roof and eave height. It's a very tight site, very tight building. That existing roof is not very tall in modern standards. So trying to get things to work with it is challenging. And so we really kind of erred more to a simplistic form, which honestly, I think back in those days is how people would have built something like this anyway. So we felt like it was really appropriate for this building.
But are you planning to just match the same siding and the same color and all the same details on the additions?
As far as color, yes. I don't know that we were looking to provide multiple colors in the building. As far as details, we just hadn't gotten that far into it. I think maybe to your point, there's a lot of opportunity for richness and detailing. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Barber, one difference maybe is that whereas the historic portion needs to be wood siding, the non-historic portion, as long as it matches the reveal and bevel of the wood, can be hardy plank per the design guidelines. So that may be one distinction, though maybe not exactly recognizable off the top, without really looking at the siding, really good. But that is one, at least material distinction.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different materials besides lap siding.
I was going to suggest that maybe we could also look at, varying the gap of the siding, so maybe it's a tighter pattern versus what the historic building is, so that there's a visual distinction there.
Would mixing like brick and the lap siding potentially work?
No. We're not discussing design, are we? We're just discussing what are we working on particularly?
You're providing comments to the applicant, which do involve design, so that they know what they should address for final review whenever they decide to come back.
Okay. Well, the siding in the original building be what, 1 by 8s, 1 by 10s?
I'm not sure you can exactly tell via that picture. Maybe, Chris, maybe you can scale it correctly via that picture, maybe get a best estimate.
Once we get the brick off, I think there's some of the siding still there, so we should be able to measure that siding and basically replicate it on the historic section.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, underneath the brick.
Once we get the brick off.
Austin, I forget, can new brick be painted?
Yes, new brick can be.
So like you could have like a white painted brick that would clearly differentiate and not be so like in your face different. But I don't know.
Side additions.
Yeah, and you're also going to have like a maintenance issue with 0 lot setbacks. Like I don't know how you're going to paint, lap siding every few years.
There's access from a neighbor.
Now, especially on some sides, it's almost impossible to get to it.
I think the only issue that has been brought to our attention is the 11-inch encroachment issue versus what, 2 feet, 11 inches currently. What are your thoughts on that as the architect? And
yeah, and I forgot to mention that actually, I believe the 123 pit owner reached out to me last week about that, and they were asking about trash can service, and it was a good point. What we're thinking, because we hadn't thought about it until it was mentioned it, to be perfectly honest. So one of the things we're thinking about doing is on the, if Austin, if you could go back to the plan, I apologize, that may be easier.
Sorry, which page?
To our new plan.
Just let me know when.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is good right here. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So just south of the office 107 on the south portion, we were looking to do a small little enclosure that would hold a single trash can, set back from the front of the building, but would sit with
second to reach out to him.
Yeah, we're probably having some technical difficulties, I'm sure.
He
So
says he's muted. He says he's here, but he's muted. He had to get on the phone earlier.
He was having
because
okay.
the audio-
Daniel, I believe you'll need to hit *6 to unmute yourself if you're on the phone call.
Hey guys, am I unmuted now? *6.
There we go.
Great. And I got my video. Sorry about that. I was having technical difficulties, so I'm calling in. So thank you guys. For this, I'm here, the architects for Will and Mary Dupree, presenting on their behalf. So thank you guys for your time today to present these drawings for the proposed house at 744 Pitt Street. As Austin mentioned, we met a number of times to sort of go over this proposed design, BAR, height, neighbors, adjacent neighbors, historic structure to the right, and really, our goal for this design was to fit in nicely, a new house that fits in nicely to the context of the old village, porches, shutters, traditional siding, traditional detailing, where our feeling is not every house needs to be loud, if that makes sense. We sort of wanted to just nestle in and feel like we've been here for a while, but also have some contemporary detailing, some things that are just a little bit fresher. A quick note, we did get the lots recombined. They are officially platted since we submitted when we submitted, and actually now it has been officially recorded with the town of Mount Pleasant. So we are officially one lot, which means we are officially back into a flood zone. However, we are going to be moving out of a flood zone. So we decided to make the effort to design our house to the lower height restriction. We thought that was the proper thing to do in this context, given the neighborhood and again, trying to fit within the existing historic house to the right of us and then the shorter house to the left. So overall, we tried, especially in Austin, if you pull up the site plan, we also, the site we had a lot of respect for, both in terms of context of the neighbors and also the trees that were on this lot. So sort of as we developed this design, we took all of that into consideration and did our best to preserve and maintain as many trees as possible. We think those are a great amenity to this lot. We've talked to the neighbors, especially the one to our left when facing the front of the house. There's a lot of great trees along that side. And so we flipped the driveway to get it off the root system of that grand 43-inch oak, which has been one of the lucky ones that SCE&G didn't butcher, to be perfectly honest. Somehow we got lucky. They stopped right before us. So anyways, we want to get the driveway off of that root zone, move it to the other side. We're proposing to remove some river birches and some hickories, one hickory to be specific, but keep the rest of the oaks and really let those flourish around our design. My clients have a young family, so we felt like a pool structure and a garage structure would be a nice amenities to the house as an overall design. We don't expect the hardscaping or pool design to change much. But as Austin alluded to, our impervious coverage will actually come down some. I sort of wanted to show a worst case scenario. We have the civil engineer on board. We've done our initial civil engineering stormwater plan study. So in terms of the technical aspects of this project, which we think also needs to be considered seriously, we feel very secure in that we have that handled and designed appropriately, which gives us a sense of encouragement as we got into the design portion. My clients wanted gracious porches, so we have a nice porch at the front, we have a nice porch at the back. We felt like porches were a thing that were missing from the house that is there currently, and felt that that's in keeping with the old village. I mean, I think being neighborly, having porches, having a nice place to sit and sort of wave to the neighbors was important, as well as a rear porch to enjoy sort of the surrounding areas. We deliberately the idea is to keep the taller massing to the center of the house, and the porches and the other structures sort of step down to that one-story presentation, both of the street and towards the rear of the lot, right? Trying to sort of be neighborly in that sense of keep our higher massing to the center and sort of step down as we move around. So we thought, at least in our humble opinion, that was sort of a successful move to sort of break down the massing, if you will, and sort of present sort of broken down front. Again, as Austin alluded to, we have a massive house to the right of us, and this is a pretty big lot in general, but we still tried to set our house back behind that, and we sort of did the math between the existing porch of the neighbor on the left and the existing porch of the neighbor on the right, and sort of split the difference, which you can see on, I believe, our site plan Thank you, Austin. You're doing a good job navigating what I'm saying. I think it's the next one. I think you go back to this, sorry, one before that. There we go. So we ran the equals off of the porches, and that's sort of where we determined the column line of our porch would be. So again, overall, I think what we are proposing here is we tried to create a design that does a couple of things. One is harmonious with the old village, porches, detailing, shutters that are operable, siding that feels, appropriate in this neighborhood. We tried to take into consideration the great amenities this lot has, which is particularly the trees, specifically the row of oaks along the left and the beautiful 43-inch oak at the front. And then also be respectful of not trying to ask for more, especially when it comes to height, when we know we're going to be out of a height restriction and that we should be doing the right thing and proposing a height that is in keeping with what will be proposed in the future with other houses that may or may not get built, in the near future. So all of that sort of melted together to produce this design. I know we're covering a lot of months of our thought trying to talk to you guys real quickly about it, but I wanted to hit some of those points that were driving what we came up with. And Mary and Will, I don't know if you guys wanted to add anything to it before we turn our time over to the board, but I'll open up to you guys if you do.
I don't think we have anything at this time. Thanks for presenting that, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay, Daniel, you're finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Let me get to Louisa, if you could ask for public comment.
Are there any public comments on the new plans for the property at 744 Pitt Street? No one is waiting.
We'll give them about 30 seconds to a minute, just to make sure that they can call in.
Just as an aside, while we wait for anyone, you guys have done a really nice job of presenting things virtually. I present to a lot of boards, a lot of different places, but I like the flow and what you guys have set up. So good job there, because obviously it is not an easy thing to manage a design board in the middle of COVID. And some places don't do it so well. So this has been a pleasure to sit in on this one today.
Thanks.
There's no one waiting in the lobby.
Okay.
Shall we proceed?
Yeah.
All right. Public comments closed. Board questions. Corey Barber, any questions?
Sorry, got to unmute. What is the front porch like square footage in terms of that 10% requirement? I know there's a rear porch, but no one sees that, so I was curious about the front porch percentage. I saw the HVAC was on the side of the house, and I thought HVAC was supposed to be in the rear. And then I was curious, why not push the garage back a little bit, and then you'd miss that one tree, that you're taking out. And then I didn't see any elevations from the street that showed the neighboring houses. And we've seen that on other houses before, like other new construction submissions. And it's very helpful, to see the relationship to the neighboring houses. Like the only thing I saw in the submittal was just for like this house, 3D or elevation otherwise.
So from staff wise, for the HVAC, it's on the rear or an inconspicuous side. So that basically saying that it can't be readily seen from the right of way. With it being tucked in this corner, that wasn't a concern with this indention from staff at least. So
I agree.
Daniel, you may want to address anything.
Yeah. And so in terms of the porches, the front porch is about a 200 square foot porch, and the rear porch is about a 500 square foot porch roughly. But our front porch is, again, the length of that guy, I'm going to put actual dimension on it. It's about almost 30 feet, 28 feet long, you know, across the front there. So I feel like it's an appropriately proportioned front porch there. And in terms of the elevations, I certainly understand that sometimes that's helpful in this context, since it wasn't on the hard necessity of a requirement in the context of the neighbors and things. We honestly spent most of our time focusing on the design of the house. We understand the height of the houses to the next of us, and felt like since we are centered in the center of the lot and below the height restriction, and that our front porch that was closest to the street was a one-story structure, essentially with a room above it, that you know, that was sort of a non-material to the overall review process. Again, just as we focus mainly on the design, but I certainly understand what you're saying. And in historic settings of downtown Charleston, where we are in very close proximity to adjacent neighbors and things are read immediately next to each other, I could see where that would be helpful. In this case, since we're centered a lot, we didn't seem to be pushing one way or the other very hard.
Yeah, I see that you guys are centered, but I don't know how your neighbors are on their lots. I feel like the big house is further from you than, you know, the smaller house to the left, but I have no idea without an elevation.
The site plan that we got, the surveys from both of our neighbors, and the site plan shows their footprints. If we go back to that, thank you.
Yeah, I see that you're aligned, you know, front to back, but I mean, I think you understand my concern.
So what's the setback relative to the existing structure?
The setback to the existing structure in terms of the actual footprint of the
from the
main
front
body of the house is similar. You can see where the front is, and then our porch is maybe just a little bit past that. It's basically in the same area that they were situated in a very similar condition. So that where our porch steps out is basically stepping out from where the existing front of the house would be.
Okay.
This is a good slide. You can see that tree that you're Xing out. Like, it seems like you could save that one.
So that's a hickory. The town of Mount Pleasant is not protected. We've discussed this with our neighbor. We also have this nice green patch along the back there that we would like to sort of leave as a buffer between our rear neighbor, especially because we've talked extensively to our neighbor to the right. And we'd like to leave that as a lawn space, especially for, you know, the sort of children to run around. And sorry, that's a holly, not a hickory. I'm misspeaking. The H's there are hollies.
So I see in this plan, I see the dimensions of the neighbors' houses from the property line, but I don't, where are the dimensions of your house from the property line? Like I see the 7.7 for the big house and the 20.6 for the small house.
So you can see the setbacks there, the 25 feet. I can give those to you, but we're well within all of the setbacks. So my apologies there.
Like, my worry is that you're like overwhelming the smaller house on the left because the house is pushed that way, and this house is basically as tall as the house to the right. That's where that elevation would really be helpful.
I would mention that based on my memory from when the owner of 754 came through a few months ago for the renovation, that the home on the right is just short of, I think it was 45 feet tall. And this one would be approximately 35 feet tall. So the one on the right, the historic one from about 1850, is considerably about 10 feet taller, thereabouts.
Is that the roof line or like chimneys?
To the roof line.
And what's the house on the left, the smaller house?
It's a story and a half, so I don't have that offhand. They haven't come through, but story and a half, you'd probably think it's probably under 25.
Yeah, so you're like I feel like you're a lot closer to the bigger house in terms of height.
One thing sort of when looking at the position on the lot, guys, is we're trying to get the driveway off of that current 43-inch oak, right? So if you slide the house all the way to the big house, right, and then you end up figuring out where the driveway goes, and the garage structures have to be the rear of the structure, you end up with an issue where you're driving over all of these sort of beautiful oaks and their root zones, which most likely won't be allowed. So I really think in terms of positioning, we're halfway in terms of the height of a 25-foot story and a half and a 45-foot historic structure, which in a lot of ways should receive a little more deference in general. And they have a 50-inch live oak over there. I think positioning wise, we're at the right spot on our lot. We're below the height restriction. We have a one-story porch towards the front to sort of keep the size as diminutive as possible, as close to the street. So I certainly understand what you are saying, but we considered the design, the location on the site, and the neighborhood pretty.
So have you drawn that
out,
elevation?
especially with that 43-inch oak.
So have you drawn that elevation or not?
That elevation is not drawn, but in terms of standing on site and looking at the context, we felt confident where it was positioned.
Okay.
Are we gonna beat this horse to death?
Were there questions from the other board members?
Are we ready for a motion?
We're still in question.
Are there any more questions from board members?
I mean, would the designer be amenable to providing that elevation or not?
I mean, if the board votes that is, the thing that is necessary, to approve this design, even though it won't change necessarily the look of the design, I'm happy to produce it. I just, I feel like our professional judgment, we spent some time on this and a lot of time in the design and back and forth with the staff. So certainly if requested, we can absolutely produce that drawing.
Yeah, I mean, we never saw this in a preliminary setting either. So this is our first time seeing it, and it's, you're taking out a house that's there. So I just feel like we got to be careful.
How tall is the house that is going to be demolished? How tall? What is the roof height of that one? 20, 25?
No, the roof height on that, because on the back you get that, it's the real elevation. You're probably closer to the 30, 35 mark of what this house is going back at in terms of the allowable height restriction.
This is on the house that's going to be demolished.
Because the rear of it, the rear of it gets much taller on that. The rear of it, yep.
Yeah, right.
Well, Austin, I'm just considering like a motion where we're going to see all this. You said there's another submittal about hard landscape and I don't know what else. Like, can we just wait till we're looking at that and see the elevation before we, commit to something?
So it is a bit different because obviously the landscaping, I guess they're treating it as almost as the home is finalized. Probably because they want to start the building permit process. In the meantime, while the landscaping is being designed or finished being designed, and in order to get a building permit, you would pretty much need to approve the design with the same at least footprint. And elevations and whatnot, minus maybe a few minor issues that may be needed to get that building permit. So if there was a big issue in terms of the streetscape design for either side, then you'd probably need to wait, maybe seek a deferral to next month to hear the item out, and, with the contingency of that item or that needed information being provided, if that's the will of the commission as a whole.
I mean, I'd like to see the elevation. I don't know if you guys want to see that. I mean, we are changing, an existing streetscape.
For the good.
I mean, I live a couple of blocks down, and I'm really familiar with this lot and this area, and I just think they have met all the requirements necessary. They have spoken with their neighbor, who is a guy who does historic restorations. I mean, that's his business.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this design is going to overwhelm that house at all. I'm more concerned about, the guy.
I think we've gotten into a little bit more of board deliberations, but if there's board questions, I think we need to finish up this before we get into the board deliberations, and that way we can get. Sure. Just for reference, if Mr. Gallagher has any questions, or Mr. Crossland or Louisa, if you have any questions for the applicant.
No, I think I'm good.
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Are we ready?
I did not have any staff rebuttal, though the applicant does have an available 3 minutes if they need to respond to anything more fully.
Yes, I think, Daniel, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say, but as the homeowners, I will say thank you for your time tonight and for listening to us. Like Daniel presented, we've tried over the past few months to work really hard to be considerate about the old village and the homes around us. We have stood in the middle of the street and we've looked at the homes beside us. We have talked to the neighbors on either side, across the street and behind us. They've all expressed their verbal approval and they're very much in favor of what we're doing. We have met the guidelines and we have received the recommendation of the staff for approval. And so, I know that maybe an extra streetscape would be potentially nice to have, but that is not one of the requirements. And after working painstakingly hard to size it right in between the two houses, we believe that we're doing the best thing. And we respectfully request your approval tonight. Thank you. And
so, Ms. Montgomery,
the rest of my time to you, if you have anything.
No, I think that was well said. Again, I appreciate the board's comments and declarations, but I would think we've covered it. So thank you.
Ms. Montgomery, if you could close the public comment.
Let's close the public comment on the new plan for 744 Fifth Street.
I did want to just mention that when it comes towards the checklist for approval, that is to meet the minimal requirements. However, the board can request further information in order to seek to make sure that everything is on the up and up for an approval. So I just wanted to make sure that that was known. That streetscape frontage is not necessarily a requirement verbatim in the checklist. However, it can things of that nature can be requested. So if you could ask for board comments and deliberation.
Any other comments?
I mean, I'll just make my last pitch that I kind of think we should see the elevation. I don't think it's really going to be slowing them down at all because they still have to do drainage and a bunch of other stuff to get their building permit.
Just noting from staff's perspective, they can't go technically into the drainage study and filing for that permit until they have received their COA.
Exactly. We're holding them up unnecessarily. And I'd like to hear a motion for the passing of the plan.
I would like to make a motion for the passing of a COA for 744 Fifth Street as they have satisfied all of our requirements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Is that 3-1, Lynette?
Correct.
Motion
That's
passed.
correct. Motion passed 3-1.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
So let's proceed. 747.
Yes, applicable ordinances are impervious lot coverage, accessory building limitations, and BAR requirement. Applicable design guidelines are doors and windows number 3, 5, and 9, decks and pools number 4. Moving to staff comments, revisions to the home were previously approved in August 2019. These are revisions upon those proposed revisions from last time. The application appears to conform with the zoning code provisions. However, the impervious lot coverage is just short of the 40%. So staff does recommend a conditional post-built survey to ensure that conformity. The application appears to conform with the design guidelines. And a note for the applicant, the pool line for the equipment to the pool itself will need to circumnavigate the pool protection zone, or excuse me, the tree protection zone. Staff's recommendation is staff recommends approval for the condition of a post-built survey to confirm conformity to the impervious lot coverage maximum. Moving to pictures of the site. This one is actually directly across the street from 744 pit that you just saw. You'll see many of the same homes in the adjoining neighboring properties. Here's the current survey of the site. And here's what you'd be going to go to, mainly this pool here in the rear. There would be hardscaping across the site, new hardscaping. You can see that a little bit more cleanly here. Going to the revisions to the home, pretty much all the revisions that they want to do from the previously approval are to the rear, in which case they're cleaning up the windows and the doorway, and also adding a staircase that you can see here out to that side of the porch. So, and here's that existing rear, I should mention. So this is the previous approval. And you'll see this is the previous approval, and then this is what they would like to go to. And then on the side, they're mainly changing the window placement between those two elevations. And wall sections here. And that concludes the staff report. If Ryan, are you available for the applicant?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you. You have 10 minutes.
Sounds good. My name is Ryan Smith. I'm with Bill Clowney Architects. Thank you all for your time this evening. As Austin mentioned, we came before the board in August 12th of 2019 with some modifications, mostly to the exterior of a 1993 portion of 747 pit. Really what we're trying to do, Austin, if you wouldn't mind going to the rear, I think that'll probably tell the story best. Yes, sir. So really what we're trying to do, it's kind of redistribution of some windows up top. We are keeping with the previously approved notion that we are trying to differentiate the window style, the 6/1 and the louvered shutters from the historic portion to kind of continue to tell the evolution of the building. As you see between those two slides, that getting rid of the 4 windows altogether in the old elevation allowed us to add the shutters on the back, which I think kind of ties the two sides together really well. And let's see, and the new stair in the middle, we're kind of working to the stair that was there previously really wasn't of a lot of the ones that you see in the village. It was kind of this wood brick hybrid. So the one that you see on center here is really, it's an all wood and really what's keeping with ones you see traditionally, especially in the rear of a home like this, leading out to the garden. And Austin, if you wouldn't mind scrolling to the front, I'll talk about the pool. It's kind of it for the house. The landscape plan, please. I think that tells. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's the third sheet.
This one, or do you want the
Yeah,
colored?
the rendered one, the colored one, please. All right, perfect. Thank you. So this is the pool. We're working with Glenn Gardner on the pool location and hardscape and planting, and he working together. We really came up with a strategy because of how close we were to the impervious, and we totally understand that a post-built survey will be required, as well as we'll do everything we can to keep those pool lines out of that tree protection zone. The pool location is really located because of the tree. What you see in that circle is the perceived drip line, which Austin can attest is quite large in comparison to the trunk system itself. On our site plan, you will see two circles, the smaller of which actually is the tree protection zone. So we wanted to keep the pool not only out of the tree protection zone as we have to, but keep it out of the drip line as well. And to leave enough buffer on the rear, one, to meet setback requirements, and also to provide as densely a vegetative buffer from Alhambra as we can. There is the existing chain link fence, which is maintained, I believe, by the city or the town. And let's see. Yeah, I think that's basically it. Be happy to answer any questions that y'all have. Thanks again.
Ms. Montgomery, if you could ask for public comment. Ms. Montgomery, if you could ask for public comment.
Ms. Montgomery, you're muted.
All right, is it? I'm up now.
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Anyone? Want to make a comment?
Yes, Lynette, sorry, I'm getting feedback. Thanks. This is the phone number to call in, and here's the conference ID, and we can give you a few seconds before you call in if you'd like to call in about this item. That's probably good.
We have no one waiting in the lobby.
Okay.
All righty.
Any board questions?
I guess it sounds like the pool equipment is kind of the main issue. I think the design's fine, but I saw there's a garage that's like much closer to the pool. If it's got power, you could put your equipment over there somewhere and have a shorter path.
Can I answer? I'm sorry, I don't know if I can.
Yes. This is question and answer.
Still getting used to this. Yes, there's actually an existing generator stand over on that portion. It was more from a sound perspective. You will see on that both the site plan and the rendered landscape plan that there's intended to be a small hardscape sitting area. And it was really noise proximity to kind of keep all of the equipment for the house. The HVAC units you see are down. They are hidden by that portion of the house that kind of juts to the plan south. It would obviously have a screen on the equipment. But again, it was really from a sound point of view, is why we chose that location. The current generator and generator stand, the generator actually doesn't work. And you'll see that note is remove. So we were actually intending to get rid of that. Just so that would all just become landscape, basically. So the real equipment yard would be where the HVAC units are currently.
I would mention, at least in terms of the tree, there's no issue in terms of where the equipment is located. It just means that they'll have to run a longer line to get around the tree. So
Yeah.
it's not anything that other people haven't had to do, trust me, with pools and stuff like that, or
Yeah,
any other equipment lines as well, power
I don't
lines,
care. I was
etc.
just offering it as a, not sure if they looked at it, but it's up to them.
Any other questions?
Board members, any questions?
Okay, staff doesn't have any other further information. Ryan, unless you do?
I just I will say we did explore putting the equipment over there, and just because of the items that I mentioned before, we vetted everything and we chose to put it in the location, so it was considered.
Okay. Ms. Montgomery, if you could close public comment.
Let's close public comment on the 747 Pitt Street application for renovations and pool.
Are there any other comments, or you can also make or anyone else can also make a motion?
I'll move to approve with the condition of a post-bill survey to confirm conformity to the impervious lot coverage maximum for 747 Pitt.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Nays? Hearing none, it's unanimous.
Okay. These are the staff approvals that staff did along the way. There we go. For this past month. Before we get into historic designation information, do we want to take a small break?
I'd like to get some water or beer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's take 5.
Louisa, could you just say we're taking a 5-minute break?
All right, we're taking a 5-minute break.
Okay, there we go.
Are y'all back? Huh? Y'all back? Still Who's keeping the time? Is everybody back on?
Can't speak for everybody, but some of us are back.
Some of us are having lunch. I can hear crackling and jumping.
Well, a little bit of a late snack.
Right, right.
Louisa, I'm here. I think we're away. I think Austin is still away.
Oh my.
And I haven't heard from Corey, so I don't know if Corey's back. Or Mr. Crossland.
Yes, but you can see me. I might be muted, but you can see me.
Mr. Barber?
Yep.
You're back? All right. I think we're all here.
Everyone is here already. So, Austin, may we proceed to the Historic
All right.
designation.
Yes, just so, if any, just as a refresher, the historic designation, recommendation date is now a rolling 50-year date. Final decision lies with town council. Public hearing before town council has to be done after this decision for recommendation is done. Again, there are contributing up to 1960, but this is only in the National Register area from Shem Creek to McCants. And the HTPC shall make the recommendations based upon 156.3, or excuse me, 432B. Here are these provisions. I won't read them through again for your benefit. And we can go on to the properties under consideration that were deferred from the last month's meeting on October 20th. So the first one is 221 Church Street, which was built in 1940. Staff's recommendation is historic. I did go by, spoke with the property resident, and was able to get some pictures for you. So just note, the home does feature true divided lights, or true divided light windows with wavy glass. They have storm windows over, and there is real wood siding on the original portion. This back portion, I'm not sure if this is real wood or the composite stuff that they also make nowadays. But the original portion is real wood. So I'll go back to the recommendation. This was one that was kind of split vote, and you asked for deferral last time. So, and you also wanted some more information on it. So I hope you're good on that.
Thank you, Austin. You may remember from the last meeting, I said this was a workman, a small cottage of a workman. I was thinking possibly a shrimper, someone who worked the waterfront. It is what is left from what used to be several, and it is most definitely contributing to the flavor of the village. And I do recommend to you gentlemen that we declare it historic.
Is that a motion?
I will move that we declare 221 Church Street, built in 1940, historic.
Based on this criteria, ma'am?
Based on all the criteria, 156.432B1E, as contributing.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
I'll second it. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, we have discussion.
Gallic, we beat him. Yes.
Do we have any discussion on this particular cottage?
Did Robert want to say something?
Go ahead.
Mr. Crossland,
Yes.
did you have any comment?
Oh, yeah, yes. I actually tried to second it, but
Okay.
So, I mean, it's like.
All right.
So it has been seconded. It is time to discuss it. Does anyone have any discussion? Hearing none, let's go for the motion. All in favor of declaring 221 Church Street as historic, as it does contribute, meeting the criteria of 156.432B1E.
All right. There you go. Sorry.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Apparently unanimous. It is considered historic. Thank you. Let's move on. The next one, 200 Ferry Street, a home on the water that was bricked in.
Yes, I was not able to get further pictures of this. The homeowner was not there, but it was listed as contributing up to 1960. Staff's recommendation is historic as before. If you have any further comments, or there's any motion, or
I have had a comment, which I mentioned to you, Austin. I did not like it because it was bricked in. And my comment is, if we're going to declare it historic, even though it's been bricked in. Oh my goodness, somebody's phone is.
there we go.
If we're going to declare it historic, even though it's bricked in, then we're going to declare the Friendship AME Church also historic, though bricked in. And that's my nasty words on that. Otherwise, I will go for it being historic.
When was it bricked in, Louisa?
This
You know?
is all
In
built
the
at one
60s,
time? Was
In
this
the
all
60s.
built at one time?
it was all wood. Yes, it was wood.
No, I mean, was the entire structure built at one time?
That carport was added on. I remember when going to Osterwolds there when it was first added on to.
Was the back portion?
I have no information on that, but it looks like it was.
I don't know.
Was like the bricking in of homes, was that like a in vogue thing at a
Oh,
certain?
it was the Williamsburgy thing. Oh my God, everybody got all Williamsburg.
I mean, I know it's not original, but your 1960s is still over 50 years ago.
Says she who was 83 the other day. Yeah,
Old is not historic.
you're right.
I mean,
Yeah, I think I tended towards, this one being historic just because like it's just cited so well. It's cited like an old village home. It's not cited like a new home. It really, it's a little more organic, and I think it's kind of nice.
well, according to E, which says embodies distinguishing characteristics of a type, style, period, or specimen in architecture or engineering. It all depends on what you regard embodies. I mean, I regard Frank Lloyd Wright houses as embodying the prairie style. I don't see this as embodying anything.
I don't either.
I mean, I just don't see it.
Especially with that real slope roof.
I mean, we can't cheapen what it means to be historic. We can't trivialize being historic. I mean, this area is historic because of what happened, 200 years ago, 100 years ago. I mean, certainly there are certain things like in the commercial area that are just precious because they make it like Mayberry from the 50s. But we gotta preserve what the value of historic means.
So is there a motion?
I will move.
I make a motion for this not to be historic.
I second that.
Well, I think the vote would be 2-2 if we were to take a vote on it, and that would not pass.
So would you like to move, or have any more discussion? There's a motion on the floor. More discussion? Okay, all in favor of the,
I think Robert's comments about
excuse me.
Preserving a time, I kind of view this house as doing that. I mean, we just saw a new construction house.
The houses in the old village proper going beyond, all the way up to Coleman. I mean, is it a specimen? Is it noteworthy? Is it, something that really is something that should be preserved in perpetuity because it exemplifies a particular style? I don't think so.
Also, I like your comment. Also, under that criteria, under A, has inherent character, interest, or value as part of the development or heritage of the community, state, or nation. No.
I mean, it's like dozens of other houses within 2 miles.
We do.
Special about it.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. If
Are there any more comments? Any more discussion? Call for the vote.
Well, is the motion to vote it not? What is the motion?
To deny.
The motion is to recommend denial of consideration for historic designation.
Be careful what you recommend to be denied, because it's at 2-2. Your denial is going to be denied.
Well, why don't we find out? Let's call in for the vote right now.
Miss Montgomery, I'd like to do a roll call.
Please do.
Thank you. Mr. Barber?
A no is disagreeing with the motion, right?
That's
Yes.
correct. It would be that you're not in favor of denial.
Yeah, I would say no.
Mr. Gallagher?
I would say no.
Mr. Crossland?
Denial.
And Miss Montgomery?
Denial.
Motion fails on a tie vote 2-2.
So just to let you know, just so we don't go through this every single week for, eternity, without a recommendation of approval, it still does not proceed to town council either way. So by essentially a hung vote is a denial. So
Okay.
I just want to make that clear. So basically, unless you want to defer this one again for further information, if there is.
Nope.
I don't think the vote's going to change.
Okay.
There's not enough information. That slope roof, obviously the gable was vastly changed to give it that almost a salt box roof. It just does not contribute. So let's kill it.
You did. You already did.
So, Lynette, sorry.
Lynette, I have a question. Austin, would it not go forward to town council with no recommendation?
No, it has to have a recommendation for historic designation from the commission to go to town council.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So the next one, 130, a bit easier because I did get some further information, and staff has recommended non-historic based on the renovation that previously basically redid the home in the 80s, I think it was. So staff's recommendation is for non-historic. So if you agree,
I agree. It had casement roll-out windows. You remember those metal windows at one time, and there was a carport, a flat front. It has been drastically altered. It does look better, and maybe if somebody didn't know, they would think, "Oh golly, there's an historic house," but it is not an historic house.
is that a motion?
I move that we declare it. I move we do not declare this home as historic. It is, what's the number? 130 Middle Street.
130 Middle
Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Hearing nays, it went unanimously deny historic designation.
All right. Moving to 924, also known in some circles as 928 Pitt Street. Significant architectural features, staff information again. Property is a part of a small African-American community between Center Street and Richter's Way for over the past 100 years. This was built in approximately in 1940. From our records, staff's recommendation is for D, E, and K. K being the reflective of that African-American settlement community that's down there. I was able to get some pictures of this home more closer up for you. It does feature, again, real wood siding with true divided light windows, which would have been appropriate for that time frame. Again, the covered porch addition was done, I believe, after Hugo at some point. Just noting, from our recently passed comprehensive plan regarding settlement communities, it says to protect the integrity of the settlement communities by limiting further encroachment and deterioration of the original development patterns and ensuring any redevelopment is compatible with community standards. So I just wanted to make that known. So if there's any questions or discussion or a motion.
Austin, there's windows in the front that have the 3 lights on top. Are those also, wood and real divided lights and all?
I believe the center picture window was added later. And
the ones adjacent.
The ones adjacent appeared to be real divided light, but the picture window was added in between them at some point. I have a sneaking suspicion that the picture was probably added on and that covered bay was added on because maybe there was a kind of a small business that maybe was run out of the front portion or something, because that kind of flies with the section of the neighborhood, which by all aspects, and I believe even Mr. Crossland can contest with the previous home that was on his property, was that there were a couple of small shops and a couple of small businesses down on this end of Pitt Street. So that's my suspicion, though I can't confirm it.
And this is like the last little grouping of these down there, right?
Yes, there's about 4 or 5 left.
Austin, the 2 homes that are on Pitt Street on either side of this building, were they also African-American cottages?
Yes, those 2, and then I believe there are a couple south of that, and then a couple north, 1 or 2 which still exist. So I think there's 5. I think 5, including this one. The 2 in front are already historic, based on that they were 1920s homes. This one was added a little bit later, and it was, at least from what I can tell, the same family property and then split later on. Mr. Ladson was invited to the meeting if you'd like to hear from the property owner, if he is available.
He spoke to us last month. Yeah.
Correct. He was invited again. Mr. Ladson, are you available? Lynette, is he in on the meeting on the side? You know? I think it was a C. Ladson.
I'm sorry, who are you looking for?
I think it's C. Ladson. I think was his email.
Oh, I don't know. I can't look at it right now.
Okay, sorry.
Austin, does it matter now that this house has a contract on it and it has technically been sold?
No, your qualifications for historic designation are independent of financial considerations.
Actually not. If you look at the Old Village Historic District purpose of district, it says to promote the economic and general welfare of the residents of the Old Village and the town. That's item number 2. So, in essence, we are not completely dismissed from that responsibility.
I'm just going by the pure items of A through K.
3A2.
Correct. Those are merely the aspirational features or the intent of the district.
And
I'm going by the
intent.
Yeah.
Which is often more important than the flawed rationale and letter that it's written in subsequently. I mean, for instance, in item E, you could say everything is, contributing to its period in which it was built, which is what I struggle with all the time. When E is given as the rationale,
And for this one, the staff recommendation is not just E, we're also involving D and K.
I know, and this is a tough one. I mean, this is really a tough one. I don't know. I mean, I have mixed feelings on this. I mean, I think it's a very important, I mean, it's right across from me. And I think that's very important. But then, you know, you have the people come in who own the property and they don't want it. And it's a tough call.
So if we declare it historic, they can say we don't want it. We don't want to be historic. Is that correct?
They can make that case to town council, and then if town council would end up declaring it historic, irregardless, they do have the option to take that to the courts if they so choose to appeal that decision.
That's true.
They do. This isn't technically, town council isn't the last stop that they technically have. I mean, they technically have the courts, but in the persona of the town, they still have town council. You're just making a recommendation.
No, you're right.
I mean, I feel like this one is, I mean, it's not in, you know, impeccable shape, but it does have a lot of original features to it. You know, like those windows are pretty unique.
And I would mention, at least from the town's perspective, going along with the comprehensive plan, is that the protection of settlement communities, no difference upon how small or how large they are. Obviously, this one being probably the smallest one of them all, is that is a central focal point of protecting these small communities to try and retain as much of that character and history as possible.
And I guess the other thing to note is, like, the house in front of it on the left, you know, is also historic and was also one of these, and they did like a really nice, you know, renovation and addition to it at some point, and it's like a nice looking little home. So, you know, this could be that, you know, with a little work from the right person.
How much land is around this particular building? I mean, is there a plot of land that goes with this particular building?
Yes, it is. It is an owned single family on a single plot of land. The two homes in front of it are on their own parcels.
Do you have the dimensions of this lot?
I don't have it offhand, but if I remember right.
Yeah, it's about a quarter acre, because, you know, the original full lot, original full lots in this area were like a half acre, and they split it front to back, and then they split the front side to side. So this is like the back half of like a full lot. So like there's room to add on to this house should the buyer want to do that.
So if I remember right, the original parcels for what neighborhood are we in? I forget. Anyway, all the parcels on this side of town, yes, Hilliardsville, were 100 by 200 feet. And of course, they may vary here and there, but assuming that, and assuming that this one is split down the middle for the two homes, and you're looking at probably 100 by 100. So probably give or take 1,000 on 10,000.
I don't think it's that big.
I don't think
it may very well be smaller. So
in, you know, a 0.4 acre allocation. I mean, that's just based on observation. I mean,
right.
I don't know exactly, but it looks a little bit more dense than that.
I mean, I don't know. I'll make the motion that we recommend it.
Let me get you the slide here. There. Oh, there we go.
Based on D, E, and K.
Is there a second? Ms. Montgomery, are you muted?
No, I'm here.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not asleep. Is there not a second to this? And then,
All right, motion fails due to the lack of a second.
Yeah, I'm kind of for the status quo here. I mean, I don't know what will happen in the future, but I'm kind of for the status quo. I love that little area. I think those houses are precious, and it would be horrible if anything happened to them. But hey, anything that is done to them has to come before this commission.
exactly. All right, we're finished with that one. We can go on to 102.
Did you not
Actually,
want to vote?
Oh, I thought we did. It
Well,
does.
we did.
The motion failed due to the lack of a second. So currently there is no recommendation for 924 Pitt.
Exactly. Thank you, Lynette.
So if you didn't want to make a motion, that's also okay, because that's a default denial of proceeding to town council.
But
So
there was a motion, but no second.
correct, and
so
that
it just-
failed.
Yeah,
It
right.
just goes away.
It goes away, right?
Yes.
For now.
So if there's no further motion, we can proceed to the next item.
Exactly, which is 102 Pitt, the old post office.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I did some more digging. The structure dates back, even though our records had circa 1960, the structure dates back to at least 1946, because that is the year that the post office moved into the building. I do not know if that was its first tenant, but that is at least the oldest date known to staff, thanks to one of Mary Julie Arroyo's books. That does kind of flow correctly, because the post office before that was torn down for where the pharmacy is, and we know that that is circa 1940s as well, so it all kind of flows together with the dates.
Exactly.
So again, this was listed as contributing up to 1960. Staff's recommendation is for historic, based on A, E, and H. I believe the owner was in on the meeting, so Jennifer, if you're available. Maybe she didn't decide.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. You have 3 minutes if you'd like to say anything.
Hi, Austin. Yes. Considering our conversation that we had,
I'm sorry, Jennifer, can you give your name and then address for the record?
Sure. It's Jennifer Short, 102 Pitt Street. The historic designation doesn't concern me as much as the situation with the proposed fence going up that will take out the parking that has been established parking for probably 50 years on the side of that building. So, of course, considering that it would be a non-conforming building if it's given the historical designation, I just wanted to go on record stating that I do have serious concerns about the fence that would be going up that would take out all the parking that would affect really all of the merchants on Pitt Street.
But we have no charge over the fence, do we, Austin?
Staff received that as a staff approval and it has not been approved as of yet.
Okay. So we cannot
Yeah,
make
that's
a
fine.
discussion on whether the fence is there or not, or going to be there or not, right?
Yes, you're just making a determination upon this property, but not upon any potential fence.
Okay.
That was the only comment that I needed to make, Austin, just for the record, understanding that that's not within the purview of this committee or meeting this evening, but I just did want to state that.
Okay.
Does the historic designation affect the validity of the fence issue? Like,
It would potentially help the owner further, because as historic designation, you do have that historic that we reviewed earlier with 125 Pitt Street. Any nonconformity for historic property can be declared conforming. So any parking, any parking issues can be resolved through that. If there's any further discussion, anyone can make a motion.
I move that the building be declared historic. Using the reasoning for staff recommendation, it meets 156432B1A, E, and H criteria listed as contributing.
Second.
Sounded like we have a second from Mr. Gallagher.
Yes.
Is there any more discussion on this building? Hearing none, let's have a vote. All in favor of declaring 102 Pitt Street as historic, say aye.
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 Aye. Nays? Hearing none, it's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, moving on to next month's, or excuse me, this month's rather. These are all accessory structures that are originally dated in 1940s, though I do have some changes for that. So first off is 310 Bennett Street. This one built in the 1940s, single-story frame shed. It was listed as contributing at the 1960s. This is in the historic district, and based on the criteria of E, and was listed as contributing. And that concludes the staff recommendation. If there's any discussion, or you can also move straight to a motion and then discuss the motion.
Is there any discussion on the shed? Hearing none, I move that and it's not a shed, it's a little outbuilding. But how should it be listed, Austin? It's not a shed.
Shed is routinely just the all-encompassing name for a non-garage, if you will. It could be an old outhouse, or whatever. So, and
right,
still
okay.
got the name shed. So,
well, I will move that the shed at 310 Bennett Street, as it is contributing, it meets 156432B1 and E as contributing. I move it. Okay.
Sounded like we had a second from Mr. Barber.
Yeah, me.
Any discussion? I believe the house is already considered historic, the Anderson house, right?
Correct.
So this just falls in with that. All righty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay,
Nay.
oops, excuse me. Was that Jean?
Yep.
I'm against.
And it sounded like so it's a hung vote of 2-2.
No, wait a minute. Are you sure of that?
Ms. Montgomery, I can do a roll call.
All righty.
As soon as my comes up. There we go. Thank you. Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Nay.
Mr. Crossland.
Nay.
Ms. Montgomery.
Aye.
Motion fails on a tie vote 2-2.
So you can have another motion. Though of course that may just end up being the same but in reverse. You could defer, or you could not proceed with any motion at all. In which case, that's a default denial.
If anybody ever wants to change anything about that, they have to come to this commission. I mean, let's move on.
Actually, I must make this point that shed appears to be under the 140 square foot minimum, and therefore they only need to go through staff approval to remove that shed. They do not need to go in front of the commission.
And so staff can say no.
You never know.
Okay.
Austin, excuse me, gentlemen. I thought that a little structure like that in the yard of an already declared historic home, considering its age, would almost automatically fall into the historic designation.
That's before you tonight.
I mean, the shed is small. There is opportunities within the guidelines to move things. So like if that shed was in the way of something an owner wanted to do, you could move it and not demolish it. You know.
They still need a COA. A few months ago, that would not have required a COA. They could have removed it without it, I should mention. But I moved it to being at least a staff level COA. When we went through and added a lot more, this was actually one thing that we made a little bit more strict. So staff could say that this one should be considered by the commission if they wanted to demo it, if an owner ever wanted to do that. But of course, I can't guarantee you. I won't be here forever. So.
But Corey's right. I mean, that's the kind of structure that's easy to pick up and move if someone decides they want to do something different with the backyard and they don't want it right there.
Yeah, I mean, that was an argument to make it historic, because we're not, you're not pigeonholing them in to a great extent. I mean, they're going to move the Village Bakery 3 feet.
Yeah.
So if we make it
if you make it before they do anything,
but it might not go before you guys.
And as Austin indicated, they at least have to come before staff.
But are you, like, you guys all live in the district, you're okay with the staff making this decision?
I am.
Yeah. On something like this, yeah.
Actually, it's not really visible from the street. Well, what's the next step to get around this and proceed?
You don't have to make any step without any further vote. It just goes away, or for now.
For now. Very good. Can we go on to 327 Bennett Street then?
Yes. 327 Bennett Street, built in circa 1940s. This one's located right along, basically right next to the right-of-way, as you can kind of see by that telephone pole that's, I think, on the neighboring property. That's probably in the right-of-way. The other buildings on the site are historic, both the main structure and I believe it's in a full accessory dwelling unit. This was listed as contributing up to 1960, and it's recommended as historic from staff.
I was told by the present owner, or the son of the present owner, because she is not able to communicate, that it was a stable. I cannot believe that a tin building would have horses in it.
They may have skinned it later on. That's potentially what might have happened with the metal. Staff's recommendation is also twofold. I mean, could you imagine this structure not being on the streetscape? Because it is one of, dare I say, one of the defining characteristics of that end of Bennett.
Yeah, well, if anybody ever wanted to do that, they would have to come before this commission and make a case for it.
You mean even if it were not historic, it would have to come before the commission to have anything done to it?
Exactly. Everything in the historic district has to come before this commission before it can be demolished or changed in any way. And that's why I say, what's our rush to declare things historic? Because, ultimately they have to come before this commission anyhow.
The reasoning is that it at least allows the owner or potential owner or whoever to know where they stand on a solid footing before they get into plans that they may want to do. so that they don't invest maybe $10,000 into an architecture plan.
Well, you gotta be
that,
silly to
commission-
invest in something that you weren't sure what the status would be. I mean,
Right, and if you made a solid decision on, okay, this is not worthy of historic designation at all, or it is, then that gives them a solid footing. Because if they know that it's historic, then they know more particularly what should and what should not be accepted for any changes.
So we don't know if that tin is just a cladding or if there really is inside of there a stable, a wooden building. And we don't have any way of knowing.
I can pretty much guarantee you that it's wood underneath.
Is the property owner going to be able to speak at some point? I can answer some of these questions.
Yes, sorry, you're available.
thank you.
The family legend is that this garage is built by my grandfather. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is John Hallback. I reside at 821 Captain Tom's Crossing on Johns Island, but my interest in this property is based on the fact that my 3 siblings and I own the property. And as Ms. Montgomery referred to, my mother still resides in the main house there. So as I was saying, my grandfather built that on the site of the old stable. Whether it is fully encompasses the old stable, we don't know. I doubt it. I've heard a comment about the size. The current building is a 20 by 20, seems small for a stable building. And the metal plating is just on a frame structure, and the structure itself is not in very good shape inside. And so just my family is a little ambivalent about the historic designation. We just need to know where we stand, as I heard one of the members say, or Austin say. We just need to know where we stand, because we are discussing the possibility of renovating it and making it useful, as its intended purpose of being a garage.
Does that conclude your comments?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll answer any questions if there are any.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Worldbeck. And I think that's one of the issues here is that, if you come to us and present an alternative use that we consider to be more beneficial to the old village and, more harmonious, then we have the ability to say yes, but it becomes a little bit more complicated once it's determined that it's historic. And we certainly take your feelings into consideration.
I mean, this one is large enough, Austin, that it does have to come to the commission members, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So here, this one's a little different than the last one, Robert. This one has to be seen by the commission.
Yeah, exactly. So we would have the ability to make a determination, balancing the scales one way or another, based on what they propose. I mean, so it would be actually a decision that is based on facts.
Okay.
Not on perhaps.
So is there a motion, or would you like to proceed to the next item?
I think we just let this one stay as is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Good call, Corey.
So we're moving that it not be declared historic.
You can make that into a motion, and
we're not making a recommendation.
Okay.
Right? Isn't that what we want to do?
It sounded like it.
Yeah, because we don't want to
unless
it's not historic, we want to, like Robert said, you want to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, just status quo. So basically we're saying no.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking. We need to have do we have a motion saying it is not historic?
Correct.
Well, let's have a motion then.
You don't necessarily need a motion unless someone wants to make a motion to that effect.
That's different, Louisa. There's three options here. It's recommending not historic, recommending historic, or doing nothing.
Okay, well, let's do nothing.
Me and Robert were saying we just leave it as is, do nothing.
All righty.
But I would just say this, and that is, if you do not feel like it needs to be classified historic, then there should be a motion to recommend it not be historic.
That's what I said.
It's better to make the motion to clearly state what you want to happen to that property as opposed to leaving it up to town council.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
If you're strong.
I will make that motion. That at this point, it not be recommended for historic designation.
I second. Any more discussion? Let's have a vote. All in favor of declaring it not historic?
Aye.
How many ayes have we got?
I'm sorry.
Any
Aye.
nays? All right, unanimously decided not to make 327 Bennett historic. All righty.
Okay, 206 Center, I discovered the date was wrong, so I removed it. 114 Hibben Street was the other way around, because I discovered that the tax records were stating that this was actually built in 1918 and is older than 1940s. Here are the significant architectural features. Moving on to again, it was listed as contributing up to 1960. Potentially, if they had the right date years ago, it may have already been historic or was listed as contributing up to 1930. And of course, staff's recommendation is for historic, given what we know now.
But
in the main
fact
structure,
no
the main,
longer look like that. The staircase is gone.
the main structure is historic, by the way. I should
Okay.
mention. Sorry. So sorry, Louisa.
I said the fact that the staircase is no longer there. Do we have a picture of the building as it looks today?
This was I wasn't aware that there were any changes to this one. I could get those for you for the next meeting if you wanted to defer it. Is that what you wanted to do?
What are the rest?
It does not look like that now.
No.
I think deferring it would be appropriate.
Let's defer that and maybe, Austin, you can get us a picture to compare the two.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
We
Was
would
that a
need
motion?
For deferral.
I move that we defer 114 Hibben until more information and pictures are available. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
We need any opposed?
Any opposed? All righty, unanimous. Okay.
114 Hibben Street, let's see here.
That's what we just did.
Yeah, that we just did.
Yeah,
that one.
sorry. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. There was another 114 Hibben Street. That was the issue. Okay. 125 Live Oak Drive. I went out and got this picture myself.
Austin, I'm sorry, just for clarification. So the second 114 Hibben
was removed. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So moving on to 125 Live Oak Drive. I rediscovered that this date was actually circa 1925 after speaking with the property owner who invited me to come take a picture, as the picture on site was a little, couldn't get that much from it. So here you have it. And the I believe he said that the original top for this was a garage originally, even 1920s, and this was servants' quarters up here for the old butler that the original owners had. This was listed as contributing up to 1960. However, again, the date is circa 1925, and it's listed as recommended for historic designation.
That's the staff. Anything else from, any comments?
I would move that it be designated as a historic structure due to its fact being a servant quarters and the age.
I will second. Any discussion?
Okay.
Hearing none. Let's have a vote on 125 Live Oak Drive, open early, well, meets 156232B1E criteria.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Hearing none. Unanimous.
124 Mary Street, circa 1940s. Though, Louisa, you said that you had some further information about this one. I think this was the one, correct? You talked to me about?
It originally was an open garage, 2-bay garage. And it looks nothing. I mean, it's a little house now. It was an upstairs that had an exterior staircase going to the second floor and a 2-bay garage with no doors over it. And it had a good little lean to it. So.
Okay, so that may change things for you if that satisfies the commission. You can make a vote for denial if you'd like.
When was it converted?
I would say when the Cruces lived there, let me think. The Rosens are now, and this is, let's see, we left it. I would say in the early 90s.
That recent. It looks like it's wood siding and everything like the house though.
Yeah, it was wood siding. The garage was. It was unpainted. But where those two windows were two open bay, separate 2-bay garages with a dirt floor.
Is there a motion for denial or?
Well, do none of the gentlemen have any comments?
I guess I don't know how to treat something like this that has evolved over time. You know, the original structure is obviously historic, but it's evolved over time. So I mean, it doesn't mean that the original structure is not there.
It sounds from Louisa's memory that it was significantly altered beyond its historic nature. I mean, that's not unheard of in the village. There are a couple homes that were completely butchered up, if you will. That you may have a couple inner walls and a couple studs, but that's about it. So,
aren't there like things where if it could be restored to what it was?
Oh my God, no.
Like, I don't know, because we do things like that where people board up windows with shutters that are always closed, but it's okay because they can revert it back. I don't know at what point you cross the threshold.
This is a 2-story home. It is a 2-story home. There's no way that you could get that beautifully appointed and furnished dwelling first floor. I mean, unless you might, somebody might.
So it was originally 1-story building then?
No, it was 2-story. But the first story was a 2-bay garage with a dirt floor and an exterior staircase on the right side.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not approve historic designation for this particular location.
Okay.
I'll second that. Any more discussion? All in favor of denying 124 historic designation, please say aye.
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 Is there a nay? It was unanimous. 124 Mary is denied. Historic
Going
designation.
to 223 Pitt Street. This one's slightly different. There was 2 bays. They took out part of the bay for garage, but they left basically the rest of it in the same. So this one's a little different than the others, but the other bay is still there in full. Any discussion or motion?
I move that it be declared historic, as it is contributing to the district.
Okay, I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on this one?
Do we know when it was altered, Austin?
Within the past, about 5 years ago, I think I've looked at the COA.
Right.
They basically took out half of the bay. They basically took out the one half door and put in a door, a normal doorway, so that they could finish on the inside. But they left the half bay and the full bay intact.
The lady who lives there has a decorating business, so I'm sure she uses part of that as a business.
In this one, because it hasn't been modified to an extent, we still feel that it's got the historic.
You could call it a garage now, still.
Okay.
Did you want to call for the vote?
I'm going to, is there a motion on the floor? I don't remember.
Yes, it was a motion to approve and a second was already done.
Good. All right, if there's no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of declaring 223 Pitt Street as historic, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Was that one nay?
Yes.
Oh, already. Motion carried on that?
3-1.
Yes, motion passed 3-1.
Very good.
The last one is, sorry, jumped ahead, is 120 Venning Street, built in circa 1940s. I spoke to the owner and was able to go on site. So these pictures are mine. Built in circa 1940s again, recommended for historic as it was contributing and under item E. I believe on this one that there was a bay, garage, or, well, maybe not. No, sorry, I don't think that. I think I forget exactly what I'm thinking. It's late.
Are those 2 pictures of the same building?
Yes.
Wow.
It's a very Gothic looking home. It's most unusual. We do not have another one like it. It's got very interesting architecture. It's like a Gothic. It's very Gothic, and it's wood siding, the entire house. Lots of trees and bushes. Now, is this for an outbuilding or for the entire home?
This is just for the outbuilding.
Okay. And they feel the outbuilding is original to is the house declared historic already?
Yes, the house is already historic.
Okay.
It's 18 something, I think.
Right.
Is there a motion or discussion? Further discussion? There's an emotion, we can move on to the next item.
Let's move on to the next item.
Or you can also declare it non-historic if you'd like.
I move that we declare 120 Benning Street non-historic.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of declaring 120 Benning Street as non-historic, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? 120 Benning Street, not historic.
All right, so the next
It's
item.
not historic.
So the next item was we already did that in the next item. Item number 11 was what Ms. Montgomery asked for the next meeting. If Ms. Montgomery, if you want to just talk about what you want to go through, and I can show some stuff as well.
I have extensive information. Dr. Nick Butler at the Charleston County Public Library wrote a treatise on the rise and decline of the Cooper River ferry companies. And as late as 1930, Sea Captain had the rights for a ferry from the foot of Hibbing Street. There were also ferries, some came, some went. There was the Hogger Island, there was the Hibbing Ferry, there was the one on Ferry Street. But this was the most recent, and this was the one the trolley cars were involved in. I'm proposing a viewing area that will transverse the end of Hibbing Street with a platform similar to the building of the Sham Creek Memorial Boardwalk over Sham Creek Bridge, with storyboard about the trolleys, with pictures of the trolleys, and a couple of pictures of the Sappho and the Lawrence, the old steam-powered ferry boats.
So is this something that you would prefer that if the town were to want to build this in the future, that maybe this commission would also work with a historic commission on the information boards?
We could have an engineer an architect engineer draw a plan for a platform that extends over this very steep drop down to the marsh and trash at the end of Hibbing.
Well, first off, what has happened in the past for requests like this is that the commission that's requesting it needs to draw up a letter to the town administrator, and then the town administrator can insert it into the capital improvements program for the town.
All right.
So staff can ghostwrite it for you.
Okay, good.
To make sure that everything looks good, and then we can present it to the commission maybe at the next meeting, and then provide it to the town administrator pending your approval of the letter.
Very good. Let's do that. Do we need a motion for that?
So no, it's just yeah, and I wanted to go through this. So these are some of the this is the 1912 Sanborn map right here. So you can see where the wooden trestle went out. And then again in the 1924. So because no really good pictures that I could find really exist of this dock, I got our GIS department to maybe supply a little help on this relief map based on LiDAR data. So what you can kind of see is that typically where there would have been a dock or a trestle is that at least some dirt, mud, either collected or was poured out near it, so that there looks to have been a pier where the dock went out and then maybe had a second, maybe one boat laid up here, another boat laid up here. So you can kind of see where it was. So that's the benefit of this data for you.
Thank you, Austin. Also, let me say that in 1930, the town of Mount Pleasant purchased the Hibbing Street dock from the State Ferry Authority for $51, buying all the property from the southwest corner of Hibbing Street to the channel of Charleston Harbor, the whole way up.
So if any other discussion?
Austin, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt just a minute. I think it would be appropriate to ask to maybe partner or include the historical commission in with a letter of support. I think coming from both commissions, that might give it a little stronger of a recommendation to the town administrator.
Very good. Let's do that.
And doesn't most of this have to be determined by the Office of Coastal Resource Management?
It would have to be
Isn't
reviewed.
that their purview?
It would have to be reviewed for anything past the critical line. However, it does have to be a part of the CIP project. So it would be it'd be a much smaller portion than, like, say, the dock extension at Memorial Park, just not up to that,
I
a
didn't,
lot
I didn't
less
know
than
how
what they're
far
doing
in or out, and I
That would
still don't. Know where they start or stop.
Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do this full extension, but maybe a little walkway out into the critical line. So that might be probably the benefit.
I wouldn't think it would project more than 10, 15 feet from the end of Hibbing Street. It would not impact the marsh at all.
I think it's a great idea. I just don't know where the coastal resource guys take over.
If the town extends this to the capital improvements program, part of the project after the funding is made available, and pending town council approval, that would be a part of the approvals for the construction.
Okay.
Is getting the OCRM permit, just like any dock.
We're just like recommending an idea, right? I mean,
yes.
And on the lines of that, I was kind of wondering, like, why not include the other viewing points? So it's more of like a complete waterfront history. And then we don't know that we're going to get everything we ask for. And usually you want to ask for more than what you actually want.
I think the storyboards could reference Hog Island, Ferry Street, and Hibbing Street. And I believe there is already an historic marker about the ferry at the end of Hibbing Street. But the Hog Island, I remember the Hog Island Ferry House. But that's an excellent suggestion, and I think the storyboards could include all of them. But the fact that we have the trolleys at this one makes it very.
Like the end of Ferry Street's where there's like a bench and there's like a nice little grassy area.
That was privately done.
And all you would have to do there is stick the storyboards in the ground.
Right.
And wasn't there a third location?
Hog Island. There was a Hog Island ferry. Hog Island is where the Ravenel Bridge is now. Those new Bank of America. All those buildings at the bottom of the Ravenel.
So in Old Village specifically, there's Hibbing, Ferry Street, and then Alhambra Hall. Those were the three for at least this portion in the Old Village. Ferry Street was destroyed 1880s, 1890s. That was the first one, at least, in the recordable knowledge. Hibbing Street came a little bit later on, and then Alhambra Hall was kind of in the middle.
Alhambra Hall was also a battery?
No.
Hibbing was.
I saw 3 batteries.
That was on Hibbing Street.
On the stuff that was sent out, I saw 3 batteries, and one of them appeared to be near Alhambra Hall, maybe a little bit closer to Pitt Street Bridge. This is the stuff that Chris sent out.
As I recall, the batteries, talking about Admiral Dahlgren's book, they were on Hibbing Street. And if you go back and review that, anyway.
No, I know there was one there.
Yeah.
Like there was also one kind of in the Alhambra or Pirates Cruise area also.
Pirates Cruise, they were revolutionary. That's a revolutionary area. That's a different history.
Yeah.
And it's Pirates Cruise for some stupid reason.
Pretty much anywhere you're going to have even a small bluff in the area, you're probably going to see that there was probably a battery on it for defense at one point or another. And those 2 points are higher, Hibbing Street especially, than other parts of the village. So it just makes sense.
But what about like places that dead end into the water, like like center dead ends. I think doesn't like Queen Street.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna make the storyboard that kind of covers everything, you could just make a couple extra of them, and like every access point, whoever happens to be walking by has access to it.
Those large markers that are weatherproof are terribly expensive. On one time they went up to over $2,000 each, and you couldn't just have a storyboard. You'd have to have a large metal marker that would be weatherproof, two-sided.
I would mention not every dead end street had a ferry on it. There was only a few of them.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking like globally telling the story of the waterfront.
Quit laughing, Jean. I hear you.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, let's all agree that the town will get a letter. I mean, the staff will get a letter from the Historical Commission as well as us, the HDPC, to the town administrator and get this gear rolling. And we can add to it as we get approval. Let's do it that way.
Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Okay.
So Mr. Crossland added for discussion regarding the design guidelines for paint. So here are the current guidelines, and the chart is, widely available as well. So Mr. Crossland, if you wanted to open the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we approved this this paint guideline thing, this thing here. But the issue is that they commingle all of the interior and exterior colors. So basically, every color is approved. I mean, I don't know what to do about that. It's just, I was kind of surprised when I actually got the color chart, and I said, gee, it's like they don't discriminate between interior colors and parlor colors. The things that you would paint your dining room or your sitting room in the 1800s. I mean, I don't know what to do about it, but it just, when that house over next to Alhambra was painted that orange color, and I took my color chart out and I went, oh yeah, that's on there.
I can't. That one was painted before the design guidelines went into place.
I know, but in retrospect, it conforms.
If that's the same color, I can't guarantee.
I went out there with the color chart. Oh, it conforms.
Robert, I think you're absolutely correct about our vision of that color on that particular house. But we have no purview over what people paint the inside of their house.
I know, but
so
we
do
do on the outside, and I don't know what to do about it. I just.
I have a suggestion.
When we approved the color chart, it never occurred to me that they did not discriminate between internal and external colors.
Well, my concern is there some way we can declare the color as if appropriate for the area?
I don't know.
Does the chart say whether it's exterior or interior?
It does not, and this is the same chart that the BAR uses downtown and staff for the city of Charleston. So they go by the same chart.
I thought what was he saying about parlor?
Oh, he was thinking it had to have, never mind, I'm tired.
The chart doesn't distinguish the use of the color.
It doesn't distinguish interior and exterior.
But you can do what you want to in your house. You could paint your bathroom purple if you want to.
Exactly.
If it's on the chart. But my concern is, where is a certain color appropriate and where is it not? Right. Just the great pumpkin on the corner of McCormick and Middle is not appropriate for the design or for the location.
I know. And I don't know what to do about it, because, I mean, once you see the chart, and I got it sitting right here, it's like, you can paint your house any color you want. because they're all here.
Yes.
I mean, you can paint it plum. There's like 8 different shades of plum. I mean, it's the historic colors of Charleston, but it's not determined what is interior and what is exterior. And, you know, I'm not sure there's anything we can do about it. I mean, I really don't. I mean,
but I have mentioned twice, can we add where appropriate?
Then we get into a major,
it's very subjective.
yes. And that's kind of the problem of getting into paint to begin with.
Right. The state of South Carolina Historic Commission has suggested not getting into it.
Yes. Now,
leave it where it's lying.
Maybe they were smart. I don't know.
Now, City of Charleston do, or at least in the historic district. City of Greenville also does. But at least from SHPO's standpoint, is that they don't recommend it, since paint color can change by the year. If, you know, a new owner can move in tomorrow and paint over that, you know, for anyone who cares.
But to Louise's point, if we added the where appropriate, and then if staff disagreed with the applicant, then it would come to the commission or something.
Then again, it's still subjective. What if staff approves a color and you don't like it? Because that happens downtown sometimes, and then it's a big hang up for the owner as well.
Well,
and causing issues for staff versus their BAR. So
yeah,
that's
I mean, this might be as good as we can get it. I don't know.
Austin, I have a question.
Yes.
Are the guidelines, does it specifically say a certain paint palette?
Yes, the Colors of Historic Charleston is the approved paint palette.
So within that paint palette, could the commission designate certain colors appropriate and certain colors not appropriate?
We could take out colors and amend the design guidelines appropriately, yes.
How many are on there, Robert?
Let me see.
And we could all take a pass through it and like cross out the ones we think are inappropriate and then cross-reference what we came up with or something. I don't know.
Well, do they differentiate between internal and external paint colors in the book?
100 of them.
No.
There's
They don't.
But out of 100, say 12 are obviously inappropriate and we X them out. I don't know.
Here we go.
That would be the only other way of doing that.
The purple that's on the side of 102 Pitt Street is aubergine or eggplant. Very popular at one time. If an entire house were painted that, it would look awful. So there again, are we dictating taste?
Maybe we should in some cases. That whatever color that is out that was just painted 3 days before it went into effect on Middle Street, we should have been able to outlaw that even after the fact.
See, that's the wording I'm striving for. And it's like there are several small houses in Mount Pleasant. One on Mary Street, one on Bennett Street, another one has been torn down, that were originally dark green or dark brown because that preservative of creosote was used. So if somebody wanted to paint their house, they're allowed to paint it white. That's wrong. That's what I want to put a stop to. I don't think that any of them left, so we don't have to worry about it. But it wouldn't be appropriate to paint one of those cottages that was originally dark green or dark brown. It would not be appropriate to paint it white, and it's already been done.
Well, right now, Austin, like changing colors is fine as long as it's on the chart, right?
And you have to get at least a staff level COA.
Yeah, and colors can always be changed. I mean, colors Those are like plantings. They're not permanent.
Oh, we're stuck with the great pumpkin.
Yeah, we are. We are.
Now that house, Austin, can they repaint it the same color without violation? Or when that paint starts to wear and they want to repaint it, they're gonna have to pick from the new chart?
They'll have to pick from the chart and do a staff level COA.
And that's an approved color.
So if we,
I mean, it's on the chart.
Yeah, I mean that's silk brocade.
God.
BCR 022.
So if you want to go through the chart yourselves, come back to the next meeting with a few paint colors that you don't want to. If there's a conclusion upon a color that you wish to have removed, we can insert that into the design guidelines for it to be removed.
Let's all do that.
It would say colors of historic Charleston, except for blah 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 blah, and that would be it.
All right, we'll all go to Sherwin-Williams and get a chart.
It's online as well. It's online.
Is there any value of like getting public input on this sort of, whittling down of the chart? Because maybe people in the community
This is a
all
public
agree.
meeting. This is a public meeting, and they can take part as long as
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's on the agenda, they can go get the chart and recommend the color be X'd out, I guess, right?
Correct.
Too many.
We can say these are the approved colors, and if you want one of the other colors, just apply for an exception.
That's the way it would already be if they wanted to apply for a color that wasn't on the chart.
Well, right now, I mean, we have all the colors on the chart.
Well,
So maybe we should pare that back a little bit so that we can say, well, that's not really right.
Yeah.
Or they can
Why don't we just put it? Maybe we just put it on the next month's agenda after all I've gotten. One thing is to get online. It's another thing to be able to take it outside in the sunshine. The colors on a computer are not the same as going outside where you're away from all fluorescent, you're away from computer light. That's the only way to do it, is to get a chart and go outside.
Yeah.
All right. Is that enough discussion?
Yes.
Hearing. All right. So I'm not sure if all of you are fully aware that, and this is kind of up for discussion. The town is considering going to flood plus 2 feet for the minimum for a raised home in a flood zone. So that would kind of undo what you have for your design guidelines. So I wanted to come before you if you wanted to raise this to flood plus 3, or if you wanted to put in more general information that you will go no more than 1 foot above what the town flood zone or building code says, something along to that line. That way we don't have to revisit this every single time the town council or the town changes the flood height. For instance, if they go to flood plus 2 tomorrow and then 5 years from now they go back to flood plus 1 and yada, 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 or they could go up to flood plus 3, we don't have to revisit this design guideline every single time.
No, I think that we should go to flood plus 3. But it's also there's a maximum height issue.
Yes, and that'll always be the fact. However, town council hasn't given the final rating to the flood plus 2. That'll happen tomorrow night. In the case that they'll actually do their final reading, they already had first reading, but minds can change, of course. So we would just come back to this with some rewording, probably in January, when you already have to when you have to update or give your yearly approval to your design guidelines.
Yeah, I would be in favor of going for flood plus 3. With the understanding that it not exceed the maximum height. And the reason is because, especially down in my end of the old village, people like, you have to have an elevated house. I mean, because we're in the AE 14 flood zone. And I noticed that the application next door, it was like 9 inches above what was code. But that's just wrong, because that doesn't give them enough headroom underneath for the pool area they want to have next to their pool. And frankly, I mean, I don't know how I got it, but I have like 8 feet 9 inches under mine. And I don't see any reason to limit them to, like 7 feet 5 inches. I mean, there's just no purpose in restricting them as long as the height of the building is not an issue, in my opinion.
That's a good point.
I thought the flood elevation raised the allowable building height, or does it not?
It does,
It raises it to 40 feet.
2 feet over the flood zone thing.
It raises it to 40 feet total from lowest common grade to roof ridge.
And normally it's 35.
Correct. So this was just town's updating it, and thought that you might want to revisit it to allow for more, again, to allow the ductwork and other things that some people were complaining about when it was just only allowed at flood plus 1 minimum or maximum rather.
What do you mean? Like the area under the house would only be like 2 feet or something? So
if you're in an AE8 right now, you can only go to 10 feet above sea level with the way it's written.
I thought the AE started at 12.
Yeah,
well, whatever it is at. There's AE8s. There's some in Dunes West and stuff like that. But if it's AE12, then your maximum right now is 14 feet above sea level. It used to be only 13 feet, but people were complaining, hey, we can't use the ductwork and other things underneath the home. So if you could raise it to 2 feet, that made sense for them. But since we're going to flood plus 2, then that would eliminate the availability of doing the ductwork underneath again. So it would be appropriate to go to flood plus 3.
Austin, did I hear somewhere that they're going to be changing the flood zones?
Yeah, so pretty much everything in Old Village it's going down 2 feet. So if you were an AE10, you're going to be pretty much an AE8 for the most part. And then there's a lot of properties that are actually going to be removed out of the flood zone on top of that.
Well, I guess what is, like, your ductwork's got to be out of the flood zone. And you're saying that 3 feet gives you enough room for ductwork and floor structure.
It was the floor structure along with the ductwork. So it was, the builders were saying that this isn't really feasible for many different types of construction. So.
Well, my concern is for the people who are like between, let's say, 6 feet and 10 feet, and they actually, want to make some usable space underneath because they have to have an elevated house.
This design guideline was put in place specifically to not allow that, so that raised homes were not out of proportion with the other homes around it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have to be on that cusp, and I was, I mean, I had no issue. I mean, mine sailed right through. and I am so happy. But I mean, I have like 8.5 feet underneath my house where I have a pool, kind of a pool area. It's a pool room, you know, with a TV and all that other stuff. It's a living area. And I just think if you're on that edge, I mean, if you have to be at least 6 feet, why not let them have 7 or 8 feet so they can do something with that space? Like, oh, have a garage, you know, be able to park underneath their house.
Again, that's specifically what the commission was trying to avoid with this regulation. I don't know if your home came in before that or if it was made
5
an
years
exemption.
ago. 5 years.
It might have been an exemption, but that's for exception.
But that's what I'm saying is, you know, if you're forced to have a house that's a certain height, you know, at least let them go up a couple of feet so you can make it useful. I mean, I'm so grateful that I didn't have to deal with that. I mean, I didn't know any of this stuff because my architect dealt with all this stuff.
I mean, I agree with the issue with the ductwork, but I mean, I think there are ways you could get it to work within the 2 feet if you're, you know, a problem solver and creative. You can use open web floor trusses, run your main branches between, you know, like there's ways to do it. I understand that the 3 feet is helpful, but I kind of agree with the old commission's intent to like not allow people to raise their house. Because like if you have to raise the house, like what's the threshold? You know, if your house only has to be raised 4 feet. Oh, but I want to raise it 8 feet now. I don't know.
I believe this issue kind of coincided with the no more than 2 feet of fill on a property, because that became a major issue with one property in particular, which I forget, it was a number of years ago, way before me, where they put at least 5 feet of fill or something like that, and the commission didn't know, and the commission says like, no more of that. So I think it was the issue that people were, you know, basically trying to destroying the streetscape as in terms of the leveling of one home in relation to another. So that's.
Well, what if you have to be 6 feet up to comply with regulations, but you actually would like to park a car underneath or an SUV, you know, and that's just not adequate. I mean, I think we need to give a couple of extra feet.
Why don't we continue the discussion? I can maybe give you some further information for the next meeting. Obviously, we still have December before January shows up.
I think this is a touchy issue. Like if you don't get the wording right, it could allow some bad things.
And
so, yeah,
we can go over those again for the next meeting. Sound good?
Say good night, Austin.
Well, we still got one last thing.
Oh my God.
Any items for next agenda?
No.
I thought Louisa was kind of alluding to the fact that there might be certain things like that are right near the district that, you know, like St. Andrews has the loop around it. And there's the other church, there's the sweet shop. I don't know if we want to, since it's in our power, I don't know if we want to start discussing.
So that's a whole, that takes a lot longer than just that because we have to get a survey done and then it has to go through town council and then recommendations, yada, yada, yada. And that's a step that not only takes that, but it also takes money for the surveys and for any recommendations from any qualified historical surveyor or whatever word I'm looking for. So that's where that
intent of our commission though.
Yes, it's just, I'd suggest let's wait a while, especially since this would have to be a budget item with any budget. And as you can imagine, budgets are a little tight right now.
When does the
So-
town like do their yearly budget?
Lynette?
So
your
budget
wheelhouse?
typically gets kicked off around the end of December, beginning of January. So it's definitely something that if you wanted to look at a project or anything like that, that you could, I would probably recommend at least starting or trying to get a good handle on it in December, but definitely not waiting much farther past January.
I mean, our initial recommendation would just be to do the survey and see if it's warranted. Like,
Yeah, you could do it.
pick an area and survey, you know, historic stuff within that area.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm saying, I think that definitely having that discussion and having that recommendation finalized and made so that then it can be potentially brought forward during the budget process. You're looking at January at the latest, I would say, just so you don't miss any deadlines. And then much,
I mean,
much like what you're talking about for
waterfront thing.
the Hibben Ferry historic area sites, it would be brought forward as a recommendation, and then that would be something that the town administrator and town council eventually would look at and including in the CIP for consideration.
I mean, I think part of, I kind of like the idea of just trying to get some things in there because you never know what you're going to get. And, you know, like other parts of town are getting budget spent on them. So why not this part of town?
Oh, they gripe about us getting so much now.
What do we get?
Getting new
All
pipes
right.
in the street, so we'll have sewage, that's for sure.
Was there any other discussion items for next agenda?
I can't think of anything.
So is that something that we're putting on the agenda for December?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I don't know what you guys think, but like street lighting, like now the LED fixtures are a thing. Like I've noticed some like really bright, you know, porch lights.
Oh, we don't get into we don't get into lighting. That's out of the purview.
Why not?
We get into the light treatment, but not the wattage or anything like that. That's not in our purview.
What do you mean by light treatment?
Yeah, God
A
damn.
lot, right? Beam that what the light actually looks like with it off.
Oh, just the fixture, you mean?
The fixture,
Yeah,
yes.
with no illumination.
But not the illumination. The illumination would be something that would be potentially within the town code, though I'm not sure we have anything in there for illumination per se, at least for residential.
Are we finished with the discussion of items on the next agenda? If we are, I move to
Hold it. I got one last thing.
Motion on the floor.
This is important. Next, your special meeting next week will be my last meeting with you because I'm leaving the town to go to the city of Greenville.
Oh,
Greenville's cool.
So
You'll be closer to Clemson.
That's correct.
well, who
So,
voted?
just giving you the heads up. So
Oh.
next week is it. So now you can adjourn.
Well, I move we adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Let's go.
All right.
This was dreadful. Absolutely dreadful.
All right. Hey, it's not as long as your longest one. There was one 2 years ago that went to 10:30.
Well,
Don't you remember that one?
No, I don't think I was on the board then.
You were there, or maybe you had the night off. Maybe, luckily.
Maybe I went to sleep and don't recall.
Yeah, Louisa, you just have to look at it as in this was the hard part, but now each subsequent year will be easier because it's
I know.
smaller
It's
amounts
over.
for discussion.
Yep.
And no one's forcing us to do this. It's volunteer.
But thank you, Corey, for your input. Well, see, Corey, I'm the only old person who knows all this stuff.
I know, you're very valuable to the group.
I mean, I was 83 on Saturday. I was a waitress at the Last Supper. I've told y'all that before.
That's hilarious. All right.
All right, take it easy.
Great night.
See you
Have a
later.
good week.
Bye-bye.
See you Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Adios, amigos.